Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Eric. I am the Fraudiophile. Thanks for joining me today. Today, first and foremost, I want to say thanks to everybody out there for helping me hit 500 subscribers. I cannot believe there are actually 500 people who want to hear some bald guy ramble on about music and records, but here we are. So thanks again for everybody that's subscribed, and for anybody else who's new coming to the channel today, thanks for being here. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite bands. I want to talk about Pearl Jam. I'm going to rank their studio albums from worst to the best. I was inspired to do this out on like the nerdiest of all internet sites, the Steve Hoffman forums. They do a great thing out there where they do the top 40 countdown for a lot of different bands where members put in their top 40 from each individual group, and they've been doing one over the last couple of weeks for Pearl Jam, which inspired me to do this. Pearl Jam is one of the bands that I do have their entire studio catalog. Don't have that for a lot of different groups, but Pearl Jam is one of them. Love the band. You can see my Minnesota Pearl Jam license plate I got here when they played in St. Paul about a little over a year ago. And I've seen them 3 times live, and definitely am going to catch them again next time they're anywhere near me. So let's go ahead and get started. So in last place, my least favorite, I haven't even taken the shrink off, I haven't even taken the record out of this one yet, is Riot Act. So this came out in the late aughts, I guess is when this came out. A couple of decent songs on here, Bush Leaguer, Half Full, but just never really got into this album. I've listened to it multiple times on streaming before, but far from being my favorite Pearl Jam album. They only get better from here. Right behind that, an album that has a couple of good songs on it, but not my favorite by any stretch of the imagination, is Lightning Bolt. So it's another one that I've bought, haven't even opened up yet. Couple decent songs on here, Pendulum, Sirens. I went and saw Pearl Jam in 2014. It was the second time I saw them, which was right after this album came out. So they opened up with Pendulum. They played Sirens at that show. It's an okay album, just very kind of almost adult contemporary sounding to me. It just doesn't have the same grit that a lot of the previous Pearl Jam albums had. Lightning Bolt itself is actually a pretty good tune as well. One that just came out a few years ago, Gigaton. So this came out, I want to say, right before the pandemic, 2020, 2021, somewhere in that range. The most popular song off of here is Dance of the Clairvoyants, which very kind of electronic sounding, drum machine, not when I think of Pearl Jam, what I want to hear when I listen to Pearl Jam. All in all, not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it's fantastic either. I know a lot of people really liked this record. Myself, it's okay. Now, from here on out, I do pretty much really like the rest of these albums. I have listened to all of these a ton. Backspacer. So this one came out in, I want to say this was 2018-ish, somewhere in that range. Got some great songs off of here. Unthought Known is probably my favorite. The Fixer is great, but Just Breathe as well. The first time I ever heard that, I heard it on the radio, and I literally broke down in tears, which I never do when it comes to listening to music. Now, movies, on the other hand, make me cry like a baby, but not usually when I'm listening to music. But that's one song that really hit me like a sledgehammer right in the chest. So, really good album. I really like the sound of this as well. From there, one that just came out this last year, that is Dark Matter. To me, the songwriting is really, really good on this. The production, not so much. I don't like, it's really glossy. It's really produced sounding. So I don't like that part of it, but I think the songwriting is great. I think Eddie's lyrics are excellent. He sounds really, really good on this. I'd have to say my favorites on this would be Waiting for Stevie and Wreckage are my 2 favorite songs off of this one. All right, we're kind of blowing through these quick just because they're good but not great. Definitely spend a lot more time as we get to the final ones. The Avocado, self-titled. So I remember buying this probably 2006, 2007, somewhere in that range. Probably should have made some notes for when these actually came out. I remember running over to Target right near where I work and picking up the CD copy of this before I started my vinyl collection. A couple of really, really good songs on here. I think Life Wasted is excellent. Parachutes, Marker in the Sand. Big Wave, I think is kind of a cool song. And far and away my favorite song on here is Inside Job. I really, really like that song. Put that inside my top 40 songs from Pearl Jam. There were a few in my top 40 that I picked from some of these previous albums, things like Unthought Known, Just Breathe, but not really represented in my favorite 40 songs from those albums. Binaural. This I think is a really, really good record. I don't think I'd call it a great record. 3 or 4 songs are really, really good on here though. I really like Light Years. I think God's Dice is a cool song. Yeah, I like the sound of this one. Insignificance, Nothing As It Seems, Thin Air. Some really good tunes. You know, this one takes me back to when this came out in the early 2000s. Pearl Jam hadn't really put much out until this came out. So a little bit of a comeback record, in my opinion, when this record came out. All right, let's get into the ones from here that I consider stone cold classics. So this one is going to surprise people, I think. A lot of people have this as their favorite Pearl Jam album. I put it right up there, but I don't think it is my favorite. That's Versus. So the second album from Pearl Jam, probably the coolest cover that they've ever put out on a record. I remember when this came out, going to Face the Music in my hometown, a little record store, and they had a midnight opening for the release of this record. So I remember sitting in the parking lot waiting for it to hit midnight. I was one of maybe, 20, 25 people, which in a college town of 25,000, I think it was a pretty good number of people waiting outside for a record, which, doesn't happen anymore in today's streaming world. Of course, to get really fired up for this was the MTV Video Music Awards, where they performed Animal and then came out and played Rockin' in the Free World with Neil Young. I think this is one, if you're a Pearl Jam fan, obviously you know pretty much every song on here. Animal, I really, really like Dissident. The other thing with this too, and not to get political here, which I could do very easily these days, but Vedder was ahead of his time, man, with his songwriting. Songs like WMA, talking about police brutality. Glorified G, a song about guns and gun control. Nobody else was singing about that in 1990, what was this, 1996, I think, 95, somewhere in that range. But the slow songs on here are huge. Daughter, Elderly Woman, Behind the Counter, A Small Town. Leash is probably one of my favorites too, off of that. Great album, one that a lot of people have as their favorite, but this one comes in at number 5 for me of the Pearl Jam records. The album that came out right after this, Vitalology. One of the coolest setups. I think this is awesome with this gatefold design with a big book inside of here. I remember buying the CD. This was one when it came out. Originally, the vinyl was released a week ahead of time. And this was nobody was collecting vinyl at the time. Some of us who were really into music, maybe our mom and dad had a record player around, but don't know too many people who went out and bought this on vinyl. Love this record. This I've probably listened to this probably my second most listened to Pearl Jam album, if I had to say. I mean, and everyone knows all the classics off of this. Corduroy, Immortality, you really can't beat that. Obviously, there's some weird stuff on here too with Bugs and Ai DeVita, but just a super cool record. I know this was the one that they said really started pushing people away from Pearl Jam, that they were trying to be different and really shrink down their fan base. But this holds up, man. This one really sounds good today, and every song on here is basically a classic except for those weird ones. All right, down to 3 left. Now here's the one that everybody generally has as their favorite, but not me. It's 10. I mean, every song on here is great. I think the reason I rank it below the next 2 is just because it's not as cohesive as of an album for me. Now, Alive is probably one of my 3 favorite songs of all time. Release, if you've ever seen Pearl Jam perform live, Release is like a religious experience. It's amazing to sit there and scream those words out with, you know, another 15, 20,000 people with you. And Black is an absolute stone cold classic. Still can't believe they didn't fit Yellow Ledbetter on here. Would have made it a nearly perfect album. 2 to go. Number 2, the album, and if you've watched my channel, you've probably heard me talk about this record before and how this is probably the most impactful record in my life itself. This is Yield. Came out in 1998, so I'll tell that story really quickly. So I was working at basically a dead-end job and had bought tickets to go see Pearl Jam. Talked to my boss about a week before the show, and he's like, no, can't have time off. You cannot go. And this concert was at Target Center in Minneapolis. I was about 3 hours from the Target Center at the time. And so I quit my job. I walked away to go see a Pearl Jam show with one of my best friends and loved it. It was one of the best nights of my life. It was fantastic. And had I not quit that job, I never would have ended up working for the company that I still work for now, 26 years later. I started with them in late 1998. Yeah, been my whole career at this place. Met my wife there. Have 2 kids. Never would have happened had I not quit my job to go see Pearl Jam. So Yield holds a special place in my heart. But the music is so good on this too. Given to Fly is definitely my favorite song off of here. Wish List is right up there too. But I like some of the more rockin' songs on here as well. Brain of Jay, Do the Evolution. It's awesome. Love Yield. That's number 2, which only leaves 1 to go. And that's No Code. From beginning to end, this is, to me, an absolute perfect album. You know, it starts off with Sometimes, you know, a very weird kind of mellow sounding song, into Hail Hail, and then Who We Are. Then you mellowed out again with In My Tree, and then you go full Neil Young with Smile and Habit. Around the Bend is cool. Present Tense is one of my top 5 Pearl Jam songs. And then Red Mosquito, if you've never heard that live, you definitely have to hear that live. So that's it. That's my list of favorite Pearl Jam albums. I'd love to hear how you would rank them. I mean, even if you only want to rank the top 5, go ahead and throw that in the comments and let me know how you feel about Pearl Jam as a band. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I love the little bit of community that we're starting to build around this channel and all of the other vinyl community channels that I'm starting to try to make more comments on. So thanks again, really appreciate it, and we'll catch you later.